This $10.3 trillion giant just dropped a new Bitcoin report, making some shocking conclusions about Bitcoin. Not only did this new report say that we're early to Bitcoin, but they also dropped some bombshells about nation state Bitcoin adoption. Today, we're going to dive into this mega 34-page report and break down all the key highlights highlighted by the giant Fidelity. Now, I think this is extremely interesting because this report is titled, "Is it too late to enter digital assets, or is it too late to enter Bitcoin?" And spoiler alert, they're very bullish on everything here going forward, and they're going to highlight here why you are not too late to Bitcoin. Now, one of the things that they really highlighted here was that there's a ton of nation states that have a ton of Bitcoin here. So you could see my buddy here, Luke, in the chat, who also ripped the live stream a little bit earlier before this, showed that America is just under 200,000 Bitcoin. We've got China also stacking pretty heavily at 190,000 Bitcoin that we know of so far. The UK over 60K. Ukraine, surprisingly enough, over 45K Bitcoin. The Kingdom of Bhutan becoming a slow giant here with their mining operation. And of course, El Salvador with nearly 6,000 Bitcoin. So this is going to be big because they believe that nation state adoption is going to be the major driver for everything here going forward into 2025. So everything here is just highlighting extremely bullishness. Well, let's dive into some of this report and what they highlighted here from the beginning. So they've highlighted the adoption curve between the internet and digital assets. Now, this is a big growing argument when it comes to the Bitcoin community. They look at, okay, how quickly were things adopted relative to Bitcoin and the growing digital asset community. So let's look at some of the parallels that we've got here. They're looking at the emergence, the fringe, the innovation and legitimatization, of the differences here, right? So in the early 2000s, the emergence of e-commerce demonstrated the internet's potential for legitimate business applications, where in 2010s, blockchain was acknowledged for its application to peer-to-peer payments, such as financial systems and supply chain management. Now, with all that, what are some other comparisons that we've seen of massive amounts of adoption? Well, let's look at the internet and relative to TV, PC, mobile phone, electricity, airplane, telephone, automobile. You could see how long the percentage of usage took for all of these. And the quickest was internet. And it wasn't even close here, folks. Let's make this a little bit bigger so you guys can see just how quick the internet was developed or was integrated quicker than the PC, the mobile phone, even television, folks, even for entertainment. Now, comparing that to the internet and Bitcoin and crypto adoption, you see that they're on a pretty similar path here. So Fidelity is definitely onto something here when they're comparing the overall adoption to Bitcoin to the internet, because they're sitting here, they're a multi-trillion-dollar giant with a lot of assets under management, and they continue to look at what is being developed, what is being utilized here in the Bitcoin space. And they're seeing the comparisons here, right? So they're comparing it to the internet. They're comparing Bitcoin to gold as a digital gold. So they're looking for differences and similarities to similar products, similar developments as they see fit here, right? So you can see on this chart that they highlighted here that the gold price and the Bitcoin price have been moving on a similar wave. But as of late in last year, we're seeing Bitcoin really start to take off relative to the gold price here in this past 3 months, this past quarter. So I think that that's what they're going to start to see, is we're going to see asset managers really start to develop a true thesis when it comes to Bitcoin. But I think that they're all keeping a very, very close eye on governments. I did an earlier live stream today about Goldman Sachs looking at potential multiple nation states adopting Bitcoin. And we're seeing it again here now in Fidelity. This report was released earlier today, or about maybe earlier yesterday, where they're now seeing significant Bitcoin investors will be from governments here going forward. And I think that that is extremely interesting because, they're not only looking at the United States, they're looking at everybody and everybody around the globe, because they're a global asset manager, right? So everybody's keeping their eyes on the United States, what Donald Trump is doing, looking for regulatory clarity. And quite frankly, they've got it in many places, but not the United States yet. So they're very hopeful that we're going to see, more of a positive reflection towards the crypto and Bitcoin space, because of Donald Trump and the recent party change here with Donnie T coming into office. So, they're looking at the Bitcoin strategic reserve, as it's not clear if they'll follow through with this idea just yet. But this report from Senator Lummis, which they highlighted here as well, where Bitcoin could hit blue sky territory with Trump's Bitcoin strategic reserve. Now, let's get back and highlight a little bit of what that report really highlighted, right? So Senator Lummis proposed this report for the United States to buy 200,000 Bitcoin for 5 years, so scooping up over 1 million coins. So that would bring the United States to over 1.2 million Bitcoin here, or nearly that, with the amount of seized Bitcoin, as long as Biden doesn't do anything here fishy and start selling off a lot of this Bitcoin that we have going on, or start selling a lot of this seized Bitcoin that he's done previously. So the requirement would be for the United States to scoop up 200,000 Bitcoin or 1 million Bitcoin over a 5-year period and hold it for at least 20 years. So that HODL mentality is already going to be built in to this strategic reserve and this policy. And that is going to be the future here, right? So with not only the strategic reserve, Fidelity is also looking at a few different aspects of what Bitcoin can transform into. So they're looking at, this tokenization aspect of Bitcoin as well. As many of you guys know, I'm not a huge fan of the tokenization of everything, but it seems like Fidelity's still kind of in their early stage adoption here, where they're looking at not only nation state adoption, but the potential tokenization as a key force of the efficiency, liquidity, and accessibility of the financial systems. So they think that the rise of digital asset products will increase in 2025, because we already have the spot Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs, and that these actively managed funds will continue to purchase up more and more Bitcoin as we're going through here through 25. And it seems like it's going to be even more bullish here going forward. We've got a few people in the chat here already. So greetings, Johnny. Glad you're joining me here again today. I appreciate you seeing here. And yeah, D-Gun, groovy, man. We're getting here, getting a little bit bullish on everything that is going on. So, I think the big highlight of this report, though, although it did highlight some tokenization aspects, I think the biggest aspect is the nation state adoption. So it's not just me, it's not just all the YouTube talking heads coming in here and telling you, hey, 25 different countries are looking at Bitcoin strategic reserves. No, it's looking at Fidelity, it's looking at Goldman Sachs. All these big giant money managers are the ones telling you, hey, we expect to see more nation states adopt Bitcoin, and we are planning for that going ahead. And they're putting their money where their mouth is, folks. I mean, they've gotten, like I said, this regulatory clarity that they didn't previously have, but they've been bullish on Bitcoin previously before, right? I mean, they've looked at, they've released multiple reports. This coin report, Bitcoin, an overview of Bitcoin and its potential use cases. So Fidelity has really been doing their research and releasing reports on a monthly basis here about Bitcoin and everything and everything in the digital asset space in order to give its investors confidence going forward as to the benefits of Bitcoin, holding Bitcoin, and everything else, right? So this Fidelity report is a 38-page report, so it is pretty long, the one that they just released, but they're highlighting different and great topics throughout this. They're looking at the overall inflation. They're comparing gold to Bitcoin throughout this report, looking at CPI year over year changes, and just how to compare these when you're looking at that comparatively to Bitcoin, and how investors can really avoid some of these inflationary effects, specifically when it comes to investing in the Bitcoin space, right? So I think that there's going to be a big changing of the landscape. They talk about the fees, the mining fees, all of these different aspects. This report takes a huge dive into that, but I think the big groundbreaking news here is not just about what they're looking at comparatively to Bitcoin mining, comparing it to gold and everything else. I think it's the biggest shocker of this report is just how many nation states they believe will start to adopt Bitcoin here going forward into 2025. And like I mentioned earlier, I mean, we had Goldman Sachs come out and say that they think 1 to 2% Bitcoin allocation will be taken by multinationals here earlier today. So I think not only is Fidelity getting on board, but they are going to be one of the front runners here when it comes to Bitcoin adoption. I mean, they're one of BlackRock's biggest competitors here, folks. And, even just 2 years ago, they had $10.3 trillion under their administration, which was down. But they've also been one of the first, asset managers to really take a Bitcoin research study. Look, this is from October 4th, 2023, talking about in January in 2022. So Fidelity has been one of the front runners when it's come to the traditional asset managers really being at the forefront of Bitcoin and the digital asset space. So I think that they're going to continue this bullishness here going forward, really looking at, how the regulatory clarity has helped them in order to sell more of the spot Bitcoin ETFs, offer more Bitcoin products to their investors, and continue to see it going forward because they're closely monitoring it, folks. And I think, not only is it Fidelity, but everywhere around the globe who is a large money manager is looking for this regulatory clarity. I think that this is a huge prediction that just this regulatory clarity is looking at over a 2x Bitcoin increasing right here, because where we're at right now is simply at like just this 93,000 Bitcoin right now. And just a few days ago, we had H.C. Wainwright come out and say that he expects this regulatory clarity to more than 2x Bitcoin in this year. And for me personally, I think that's extremely bearish. Just looking at everything that we've gotten lined it out. I mean, this 35-page report compares Bitcoin to gold in an inflationary time. We're going to have the Fed lower interest rates, folks. We're going to have nation states start to buy into Bitcoin. We're going to have large money managers start to buy into Bitcoin. And on top of that, with the lower interest rates, the global liquidity going up. I mean, I just don't see a world where this thing doesn't pop off here pretty soon. So, like I mentioned here previously, the case for Bitcoin, a research-based framework to help investors understands Bitcoin's unique features and risk return. I think like Fidelity has really been encouraging their investors to purchase Bitcoin and have some sort of allocation for quite some time. As Kate is saying here in the chat, so much bullish news, but so little retail. I mean, I agree. I think the interesting aspect about this bull run that we're seeing here now is previous bull runs was driven majority by retail. But on the flip side of things, retail doesn't have the exorbitant amount of money that, nation states and traditional finance has. Well, now this bull run is being led by the nation states. It's being led by, the traditional financial products that are being rolled out here, the ETFs, these large institutional investors. So the money that is sitting on the sidelines now is something that we've never seen before. And that's why I think, we're going to continue to see this take off. Now, one of the true aspects of Bitcoin is being able to hold your own keys, really being able to take your Bitcoin off exchanges. Now, Fidelity, Goldman Sachs, BlackRock, all these guys are going to encourage you to hold Bitcoin in an ETF based product, which quite frankly has a bunch of counterparty risk. You never know if that Bitcoin's actually being purchased or anything along those lines. But that's why, I've partnered with the Bitcoin Way. You can go to thebitcoinway.com/green candle and you'll get a free 30-minute consultation to help you get your Bitcoin off exchange. They can help you if you're challenged here, not able to properly secure your computer, if you're worried about some of those counterparty risks with, connecting to different Wi-Fi's, potentially getting hacked, all those things, they could do that. So you can go to thebitcoinway.com/green candle, free 30-minute consultation. And if you're looking to travel around and get a Plan B passport, they can help you out with that as well. Because they've got a lot of great products, a bunch or 20 years of cybersecurity experience and much more. So check out the boys over at the Bitcoin Way. But let's get back to this 38-page groundbreaking report that we have here, right? I think let's get back to the premise of this. Is it too late? Is it too late to enter Bitcoin? The short answer is no, right? I mean, we have nation states starting to buy into Bitcoin. We have traditional finance who's had ETF products that haven't even been there for an entire year starting to get into Bitcoin, and, everybody else. So they've been playing catch up with retail since the beginning, since 2009. So you can still get into Bitcoin for extremely cheap. The amount of sats you can buy for $1 is going to be looking good for you here in years to come. So I highly encourage you guys to keep trucking on because of all this bullish news that we keep seeing. And if you look at the adoption curve comparatively to the internet, we're still early, folks. I mean, the internet is see one of the fastest developing technologies, but you see how all these other technologies developed, how all these other technologies were adopted over time. So we're not quite there to full adoption just yet for the Bitcoin space. This is one of those things that we'll potentially see the gradually, then suddenly, that, like a friend of the program, Parker Lewis, loves to say. And I truly believe that we're going to get there, right? I mean, if you look at this chart here, internet was on an exponential rise, but we still have a ways to go before we're getting fully developed into everybody having access to the internet, where internet's almost looked at as having electricity or having running water in the house in the first world countries. So I think that we're still early on when it comes to the Bitcoin space, and we're still going to see a lot of adoption here in the future. So thank you guys all for joining me. Thanks for joining me in the chat again here for today. So smash the like button, hit the subscribe button. I'll keep this one short and sweet. So I appreciate you guys coming out, and I'll see you all the next one.